Hi there, I'm Professor Kevin W. Tharp, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the process that we're going to be using in the semester project for ICT 103, the website project that is the semester-long project. As you may be aware, there are a lot of classes that teach ICT. There are a lot of sections of ICT 103 each semester. Some are online, some are face-to-face, some are synchronous, some are asynchronous. There's all different types of ways that we teach this class depending upon the needs of the individual groups that we're teaching at the time. But we also want to use the same curriculum. And so, in order to build flexibility, what we've done with this project is at your instructor's choice, it's either got the ability to be a group project or an individual project. Well, the process flow is different for a group project than it is an individual project. And so, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a process flow diagram that I created to help us to create the instructional resources for this so that you only see what you need to see, and I'm going to use this to explain the project and also to give you an example of how you would use a process flow diagram in your everyday life. Let me move myself out of the way here. And what we're going to find is I've broken this into sort of three categories of the process. There's the assignment itself, which is actually the same for everybody. And we've got a number of phases to this. So the first phase is what we call visioning. That's where we establish what is this assignment going to be about? What is it going to look like? That's the thinking before you're actually doing phase of thing. In phase two, we're going to be dealing with content and navigation planning because you're going to be creating a website. In phase three, you're actually going to be doing research and the content development. And in phase four, we're going to finalize and present the website. So there's four different phases to this, and each of them will correspond to a module in the semester. So again, we have the ability to do a group project or an individual project. From the standpoint of either project, the content is going to be the same. What's going to be different is the processes that we use in order to get to that. So, from a group project, and what I've done is I've identified elements that are unique to the group project in the color of green. What I've done for the individual project is this sort of purple lavender color, and I use that throughout the process diagram. So the main difference between it being an individual project and a group project is that uh, in an individual project, the person is going to do all of the assignment steps themselves. So they will do the research, they'll do the content development, they'll do the creating the website. In the group project, some of that content development is going to be, all of it is going to be divided amongst the various members of your team. So where there's additional effort in the individual project on the individual in creating the content, doing the research, in the group project, that extra effort actually comes into creating and managing groups. So there's advantages to doing it either way. The advantage to the group project is that aspect of working with the group, coordinating efforts, all of that. The advantage of the individual project is you will have more time with the content and with the website development. So whereas here there are distributed roles, in the individual project, those roles all fall on the individual, but they don't have to deal with the managing of the groups. So, in the end, the amount of time that is spent on this, whether it is from a group project or an individual, is for each individual, it's gonna be similar. Because there's more to the group project. So in the group project, the first thing that we're going to do, and this is in right off the bat. So right off the bat, those or classes that are doing it as a group project, you're going to have to form your groups, identify the group and interests, determine meeting logistics, and identify the roles because each person in the group is going to have specific roles to do. Then when we hit the module where we start working on the assignment, you'll go into phase one. So this is pre-phase one. So the logistics of setting up the group is pre-phase one, whereas in the individual, there is no pre-phase one. It starts with phase one. So in this one, what you'll be doing is you'll be picking a country. You'll be creating a company for that. And I'm not going to go into detail in these right now. I'll go into detail in them in other videos later on. You're going to determine a product or service, company attributes. You're going to research the country that the company is located in. This is not in the United States. So you're going to be setting up a company outside the United States, and you are going to look at the United Nations strategic development goals, and you're going to choose one that's going to be kind of the focus of your company. We'll get into more about that when we get into phase one. The output from phase one is a visioning document where you talk about all those things. In phase two, and this is where the different processes start to really come into play. So you'll see that with the individual, you create the website, you go through and do the process of selecting it and creating pages, setting up the navigation, and launching the website in phase two. In the groups, somebody's going to have to add the other members to the website, because you will be setting up a website where you will host all of this content. Again, that detail is coming later on, but somebody's going to have to be responsible in the groups for setting up the website. Somebody's going to have to be responsible for adding other members to that and giving them the appropriate permissions. And so then the group will go about these content and navigation planning stages, kind of setting up the website, preparing it to be seen, and then launching it. This is a soft launch so that we can see the work that you're doing, because until you do the soft launch, we can't, as instructors, see what you've done. So again, the stuff in blue applies to everybody. The group stuff is in green, and the individual stuff is in that lavender. Now, at the end of phase two, you will turn in the content and navigation planning information, and that will include the URL of the website. What's going to happen then with groups is you are going to go into a phase two peer evaluation, where you're evaluating the other members of your group and on their participation as a member of the group in the different activities that need to be undertaken up to this point. So that'll be looking at everything up to the point where you have turned in the phase two. So in group grading, what we do is you will do a peer evaluation. You'll do this at two different points, and those points are in the areas where we do assessment and assigning points. So the way that we do the group grading is everybody in the group will get the same grade, except that is you'll do the peer evaluation where you will evaluate the participation of every member of your group, and based upon the outcome of that peer evaluation, the grades that happen in the assessment can be you can get bonus points so that you're more than the rest of the group grade, or you can get deducted points all the way down to a 0. So it is possible, if you are not actively involved as a group member, that your group could get A on this and you could get a 0. So this is part of the reason that we do this, is to address the dynamic that sometimes happens in groups of social loafing, where some members will go out and do all the work, and other members will sit back and let them do it and just take the advantage of it. So this is actually in place to minimize that, to encourage everybody to be involved, but it's also to make it clear that if you are not actively involved with your group, it is possible essentially to get fired. And we have two of these checkpoints. We've got the one at phase two, where that will affect your grade either neutrally, positively, or negatively from this assessment from the first two phases. And then there's another one at the end. So that's the end of phase two. Moving on to phase three, here we go actually to the research and content development. So we've already done a plan at this point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to start creating the content, researching the various things that we need to know to include in this. Um, and start putting some of that information into phase 3. There is no points assessment at the end of phase 3. This is set up for phase 4, but there is a check-in at this point. And then we go to phase 4, and phase 4 is finalizing and presenting the website. So at this point, you'll bring together everything that you've done up to this point, and you will turn in that final project let me go back to the phase 2, because I talked about what the groups do. The individual will get their assessment and then proceed to phase 3. They don't do the peer evaluation at this point. In phase 3, I already talked about that. This is where you're really bringing the content together. In phase 4, we're finalizing this. You'll turn in your project. The individuals will go straight to presenting their project. And then there's a peer evaluation of other individuals' projects. So if you are doing this as an individual project, you will do a peer evaluation of somebody else's final project or the presentation of their project. If you are in a group, after you turn it in, there is a second and final group member peer evaluation where you'll evaluate the participation of the members in your group. And then depending upon, and we hope to not use this, but it is in place, if you have been significantly penalized by your peers in your group, essentially you've been fired, you don't get to go on to present the final project. And it is possible for you to end up with, again, a 0 or a much lower score than the group grade based upon this peer evaluation. So the peer evaluation actually does have impact on the assessment. So after that peer evaluation, those who have not been severely penalized by their group members go on, and as a group, you will present the final project. And then the assessment of your group will come from there. Whereas in the individuals, you'll turn in the final project, you'll create a presentation of that, and then your peers will evaluate your work, you will evaluate your peers' work, and that is where the grade comes from this. And that is the process diagram. So the purpose of a process diagram is to let you see how things are going to work. What is the process that is in place? Hopefully you can see the difference between the processes for the individual and the groups in this, and you understand the ramifications in a group project of not being an active participant in your group. And this ends up being a full semester project. You'll work on this ending towards the very end of the semester with your presentation and the peer evaluations. That's all I've got for now. I hope this has been helpful. I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.